the founder and CEO at Digital Now, no other than Mr. Brad Groux.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Brad. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Brad Groux, founder and CEO of Digital Melds, based out of Houston, Texas. I've been a technologist for 25 years at this point. Basically my entire adult life, I've been a fan of technology, and I really love being an evangelist for technology, and I love that technology is what I call the great equalizer. So it allows people to punch above their weight class and allows the small guy to compete with the big guys. And I think with AI and automation, that's going to get bigger and better over the next few years.
Mr. Brad Groux, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. AI implementation preparedness. What is the most common strategic mistake leaders make when rushing to adopt AI tools before clarifying their actual business need?
I think the number one rule they make is not talking to their boots in the ground, as we call it, the users, their people. I tell leaders to start when you want to try to solve problems with technology, not just AI, but technology across the board. Start with the people closest to the problem you're trying to solve. And a lot of times these decisions are made in boardrooms or golf courses or over happy hour with between executives, right? And they don't talk to the workers who are actually having to deal with the decisions they're making. And I think that's a huge mistake.
How can leaders cut through AI vendor hype to honestly assess if their problem actually requires AI?
Yeah, I would think I would start with basically ask them some general questions about the problem and let them know the problems you're trying to solve. And if they start with the hardest problem, they're probably just trying to bilk hours out of you rather than trying to solve your actual problem. Because what we like to do, and what I encourage most people to do with any technology rollout, is you start with the lowest hanging fruit. You gain momentum, you gain groundswell within your organization, you win people over. You really need champions to, from a technology perspective. You need to get adoption, widespread adoption, you need champions, and you can't do that yourself. And you can't be from top down. It's got to be from bottom up. And I think that's the most important aspect of it. And unfortunately, just in a lot of large organizations, the leadership doesn't really seek guidance from the folks who are actually solving the problems.
Very well said, Mr. Brad. Beautifully articulated. What are the top three non technical indicators that the company is not ready for AI implementation?
The number one would be, are your processes documented? If you don't have documented processes, then that likely means that your data is not where it needs to be either. So AI is very personable. It's based AI is successful based upon the amount of data you have and the how ready that data is to be ingested within AI. You can go talk to ChatGPT and it just knows the basic things of what it's been trained on. But as you talk to ChatGPT over time and you feed it more information about yourself, it gets more context, right? And so you provide that context. And if your data is in disparate systems, so it's in people's inboxes or in people's heads, it's not even documented, or you don't even know where all your data is. That's going to be your biggest draw. And the same thing for your processes. If your processes aren't where they need to be, if you don't know how you get from point A to Z in your accounts payable process or your HR onboarding or HR offboarding, those are where you need to start. You need to start at that foundation because whatever you build, if you don't set that foundation and get that foundation set, you're building on shaky ground, and it's going to end up collapsing eventually.
What foundational skills like data, literacy, or critical thinking must teams have before AI arrives?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is communication. You have to be able to communicate, mostly cross-functionally as well, because the thing about AI is it's not a technology problem. A lot of people think it is a technology problem, but again, AI is built in the data of the business, and the data of the business is very specific of your teams and your processes. And so, if your accounting team doesn't realize how their decisions are affecting everyone else in the organization, then that's going to affect any kind of rollout you have. So you have to have, what we call is we create a center of excellence, whether it's a data center of excellence or an AI center of excellence. Bring in key stakeholders from all over the business. Bring in people who are evangelists, but also bring in those naysayers that are going to ask the tough questions that nobody else will really think of. And so you take a wide section, a cross section across your entire organization. You bring those people together, have lunch and learn sessions where you brainstorm ideas. Put things up on a whiteboard and write them down and brainstorm it. Like what are ways we can improve upon? And I think the biggest thing I see across organizations is just a lack of communications because most people they're overworked, right? They're putting out fires all day. They're not thinking long term. They're thinking like, I'm solving the problem right in front of me. And so leadership needs to enable the folks on the ground to take the time to discuss those things. And like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all these technology driven companies, they have what they call an 80-20 rule, right? So 80% of your time you're delivering on your day to day activities, and the 20% you're working on improving things, whether it's improving your personal life and your personal education or improving your processes for your team or as an organization as a whole.
Mr. Brad, how should leaders address employee fears of job displacement to turn resistance into engagement with AI tools?
It's the job of a leader to help upskill. And I think to let them know that they shouldn't fear these technologies, they should embrace them. And I think an organization that's well run is going to realize if you have someone, the hardest thing to do in the business world is hire good people and hire people that are reliable. And so I think if you are fearful of the times coming ahead, just take the time on your own, to go to ChatGPT and say, here's my skill set, here's my resume. I want to upskill over the next 12 months, and ask it to give you like a roadmap for it. And even ChatGPT for the free version will give you that roadmap. Business leaders, you need to be doing that across your entire organization. You need to be saying, how can I upskill my team? How can I help prepare them? How can I provide them with the tools? As a leader, your job is to clear roadblocks, not make roadblocks.
Yes, indeed. Be a role model, people, for the company. Why is identifying and training AI evangelists before rollout critical or for adoption?
Because again, I think a lot of people, I think every major organization's probably had a bad technology rollout, right? So they've rolled out a product or solution that just didn't work because they didn't do their due diligence, they didn't take the right steps. And so if you're going to take the time to invest time and resources and capital into these solutions, you need to also take the time to make sure that you're giving it the best foot forward. And the way you do that is create those evangelists, create the people who are in common agreements across your organization about the path forward. It takes leadership to say, this is our guiding light, this is our North Star. We need to follow that, and we need to all row in the same direction. But it can't be with an iron fist. You have to have the ability to be nimble. And I tell pivot, you need to be able to pivot like Dr. J, right? The basketball player. You need to be able to pivot. That's because how you start rolling out things today, AI is changing so quickly that it may be different in 6 weeks down the road, but that doesn't mean you stop. If you wait until then, you're too late because your competitors are going to be doing this, whether you do it or not.
How can leaders pinpoint exactly where AI could elevate friction versus creating a new complexity?
Yeah, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but you need to talk to your people. You need to talk to the most critical teams and people within your organization, and ask them where they think AI needs to be. Don't sit in your ivory tower and just think you know how the business is run, because like you may know in the overall macro view, but you need that micro view for AI. You need to know where you can have those, inject it in the best places, because a lot of times it may not make sense from an RI perspective, or um, you know you need to do that cost benefit analysis. Is this going to save us hours? Okay, well, how much is the person making, and where we're going to save that? Like, you have to do that basic math to understand whether it's worthwhile. But also, I think, don't even look at it from the cost perspective. Look at it as like, are you saving time for your people? Because if when you save time for people from an automation perspective, you free them up to do more meaningful things that they generally find more meaningful in their life, and they feel more fulfilled, and so they're going to want to do more work and better work because you've removed that friction from them.
Mr. Brad, as a founder and CEO of Digital Meld, what are your short term and long term goals?
So my short term goals are to help as many people as possible to understand what AI is and what the possibilities are. I think we're still in our, I would say we're toddlers with AI. If you map the trajectory with how it is in the internet, if you remember, the internet came around in the early '90s. It didn't really start gaining traction until like the mid to late '90s with like AOL and things, and then Google came around in the late '90s, and then Wikipedia in early 2000, and YouTube 2005. I think we're in that first 4 or 5 years up to like the Wikipedia stage. So I'd say we're like toddlers right now with AI. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of great things you could do, but there's so much more to know and so much more to learn. So that's the short term goal. The long term goal is having people, especially leaders, think generationally. I think that's the problem now. I think with a lot of leaders, they think in quarters because that's their financial numbers, what drive their bonuses. Right? That's just the truth. and they're thinking about the short term goals. And these are not our adversaries in the space. Let's just say is China. China's thinking generationally. They're all the plans they're making now for AI and infrastructure and all this change. It's happening at a generational level. Where in the United States specifically, we work in 2, 4, and 6 year terms because that's what the politics is. And then
Yes.
in our organizations, it's quarterly terms because that's what people get their bonuses on.
Yes. China is now ahead
Mhm.
because of their consistency.
Yes.
Mr. Brad, thank you so much for those things that you're talking about, and good luck to your goals
Thank
and
you.
hoping for more and more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I would say have a servant mindset. So my one of my favorite books that I based my business strategy on is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And he argues that effective leadership is rooted in service. And our military does this, right? Like the best military leaders are always ones that are, again, how can you empower those boots on the ground to be the best that they can be? How can you give them the tools and resources they can to go fight those battles for you? Don't be a barrier of entry. Don't be an albatross around their neck. Have a servant attitude and servant mindset, and it's going to come back to you tenfold.
Indeed, highly recommended.
Mhm.
And Mr. Brad, do you have another book that you want to recommend
Yeah,
except
so
for Simon?
when I was in high school in the mid '90s, I read Nuts, which is the book about Herb Keller, who's the founder of Southwest Airlines. And Southwest Airlines taken a toll in the last couple of years as investment bankers have taken over the corporation. But again, it's more of that servant mindset, thinking differently, going against the grain. My father told me something when I was a child, a teenager, that really stuck with me. It was the mid '90s, so again, the internet didn't really exist, and he said, "Son, if anybody ever asks if you know how to do something, tell them yes, because you can go get a book. You can go buy a book to figure out how to do it, right?" And back then, we had to go to the library and know the Dewey Decimal System and those things. But then the internet came around, and then YouTube, and then now with ChatGPT and these other solutions, there's really no reason. You just need to have faith in your ability to figure things out. And I think the Nuts by about Herb Keller is literally that like that. He took on the aviation industry in the '70s with hopes and dreams and hard work.
Hard work indeed and consistency, people. What's one
Yes.
often overlooked step to prepare teams for how their daily work will change post AI?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that folks aren't understanding is again that communication, just letting people know that they matter and you're thinking about them long term. You're not like thinking. Don't think of AI and automation as a replacement. Think as an augmentation, right? Like it's not. You're not going to replace your accountant. You're going to have an accountant who's being enhanced by AI, which frees them up to do the things they care about. And as long as you focus on freeing up time to provide to your workers the meaningful work that they can actually work on and do make actual change. I know we all put out fires all the time, and if you could just put out those fires automatically and then just focus on those big, climbing Mount Everest, those big long-term goals, those projects you've been on the back burner for 6 months or 2 years or whatever. That's what AI is going to help you do.
What's the first data quality issues leaders should audit? Is it duplicate records or inconsistent formatting that derails AI fast?
It's kind of all of the above. My biggest thing is like, how are you collecting your data? Is it on a schedule? Is it quarterly? Is it, make a, streamline those operations, the collection of data, and then you worry about what format it is in. Again, most organizations have data in all kinds of different disparate systems. Create that, ETL, extract, transform, load, or ELT, extract, load, transform process where you're pulling data from all these disparate systems and putting it into a single place, and then you can kind of figure out where to go from there and what makes sense. Whenever you're trying to, come with that data quality, bring people from each team. So whenever you're defining what the scheme is, defining what the naming standards are going to be, you're getting input from everyone within the organization. Again, it's not a top-down direction.
Mr. Broad, how do you balance giving AI systems enough data access while maintaining security compliance before implementation?
Yeah, so this is a different question depending on your company. If you're a publicly traded company, you work under completely different operational standards than folks that aren't. So from that perspective, you're going to have to just follow whatever the guidelines, SOX compliance, and or if you're a financial industry, then FINRA. If you're medical, HIPAA compliance, those things you're going to have to be extra wary. That doesn't mean you can't start with systems that aren't have that critical data. But I think again, as you start with that data center of excellence, which would should a component of that should be ethics and privacy and those things, because once a cat's out of bag, you can't get it back. I think we've seen that with all the data breaches, and so you do need to be wary as you turn these things on. But the good news is there are AI solutions and automation solutions specifically that don't need a ton of data to be really, really effective. So I would say be cautious, but also don't let it hamper your growth and your adoption.
How about how can leaders spot if their data is fundamentally biased or flawed?
Yeah. So again, if they're pulling data from one system and not reconciling it with data from another system, financials is the perfect example. If you're not reconciling your financial books and you're just you're taking everything as truth, that's your biggest red flag. And the biggest thing for me is if you have your data collection processes in place, your data transformation processes in place, it helps you spot those things really easily. And again, use these tools to help you find these inconsistencies. You can train a large language model really easily that's even like one that's open source and offline, so it's not connected to the internet, that'll help protect your data internally within your organization. You can train it to say, help me spot inconsistency, help me spot where I may have some ethical considerations, or I may have some moral considerations that I haven't actually taken in place.
How should leaders calculate their own prep costs, like data cleaning or training when evaluating total AI ROI?
Yeah, again, I think I'm going to always refer back to what time savings are you going to get for this? Because time is the only finite resource we have, right? Like the number of hours in a day. You have a good worker at most, or hopefully at most, they're working is like 50 or 60 hours a week. Hopefully, you're not working people 70 or 8 hours a week, but most of the time, hopefully, people are working about 40 hours a week, right? So you're limited on the number of hours in a day. So I'm always going to say, what's going to be your biggest time savings, and then from that, you can do the math to try to figure out the ROI. But the biggest time savings, and again, removing the biggest albatrosses and barriers from people. What's the nagging thing that you wish you could just remove from people's workflow? And you start just by asking people, what's something you do every day that you wish you could automate? And I like going into a conference room and just handing out post-it notes and having people just write that down. And then we just put those up on the whiteboard and we kind of prioritize that. Okay, is anybody else having this pain point? And again, if you're not having those conversations regularly, you may understand there may be people cross-functionally in different groups that are having the exact same pain point and they're fighting it differently. And if you bring them together, converse, then you can go take a team effort to tackle that.
Why is asking how will this tool connect to our system or existing systems like CRM or ERP a make or break pre-purchase question?
Yeah, so every modern AI platform and or technology and automation platform should have the ability to connect to your existing systems. But the beauty is with some of the automation tools like Make.com or Monday.com or Microsoft Power Automate, you can even do things that for systems that are offline and don't really work. I've been able to connect to um, you know, connect to servers, mainframes from the 1980s as an example, and get data off of those with automation tools. It's a little bit, a few extra steps, but you can do that. Most of the organizations, they should have that in place, but again, make sure that they have standards in place and it's well documented. And what I would really do is like take their API documentation and or their support documentation and ask ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or one of the other tools and say, what on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this? So use these tools to also help you vet adopting other tools. I think the big key is always going to have that, especially for large organizations, is have that ETL process. So you have your data lake or your data and centralized data storage. For smaller businesses, you're going to kind of like find workarounds for that. I think to get the most ROI.
Mr. Brad, what basic ethical framework of fairness, transparency should leaders establish internally before evaluating AI vendors?
Yeah, so I think you should already have these processes in place because AI evaluating AI vendors shouldn't be really all that different from evaluating regular technology vendors. The data privacy for a database storage service is really no different than an AI storage service. But I think the big thing is if you don't have those processes in place, that should be part of that data center of excellence that you created. And if you're not having this data center of excellence and you're not having regular meetings, you're not holding regular audits, then are you really holding yourself accountable? You're probably flying by your seat of pants, and sometimes that's what you have to do, is because you're limited on headcount. But just know that as you free up time, don't overlook that ethics problem because it will eventually come back to bite you.
For sure. So, how can leaders stress test if a tool will handle 5 times the data users before signing a long term contract?
Again, this is a beauty where the LLM products already out there can help you. If you get Claude Sonnet, 3.7 or 4.0, and you can say, hey, I need a data set for this specific test case, it'll dump out that data set for you. You can go to sites like Kaggle.com and others to grab large data sets and then try to, force feed things. You can have it create test APIs for you and other things. All your technical folks with your organization should understand what I'm kind of speaking at, but it's getting easier and easier and easier to do those stress tests and do like the penetration testings from a security perspective, because all these tools kind of give you the roadmap for the basic concepts of that. And then you can take it to your team and get their feedback on how they would apply those basic concepts to the intricacies of your network and your people.
Very well said, Mr. Brad. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in fourth season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Brad, if a leader has zero AI prep done, what's the one thing they should assess tomorrow?
They need to assess their priorities, because again, if their team, if they're not prepared for this, their competitors are. And unless you operate in some crazy world where there are no competitors for your business, then that should be something that should be scaring you. Again, it's your job as a leader to be prepared for those worst case scenarios and to prepare your team for success. And if you're not doing your due diligence for AI now, I would encourage you to reach out to experts in the field that would be able to help you to do that. And not just that, but look out. There's great experts on LinkedIn that offer free advice. There's great communities locally, like in Houston. I'm in Houston, Texas. We have a Houston AI club that's once a month and meets, and that's just great to go talk to people and get involved. And I would say the name of my podcast is Start Small, Think Big. Just you have to take that first step. You have to take that first leap, and just it's one step at a time.
Yes, baby step, people, baby step. And Mr. Brad Groux, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate it. Again, we have a podcast, Start Small, Think Big. It's on all your favorite podcast platforms. It's on video on YouTube and Spotify. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Brad, B-R-A-D, Groux, G-R-O-U-X. I'm the only one in the world with that name. So if you can't find me, search a little harder, maybe. No, but also at digitalmail.io, we're happy to help any business who has these sort of questions. And I'd love to just talk. You can go get a 30 or 45-minute booking with me and just talk, and we'll help you guide you the way.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Brad Groux, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering episodes for the podcast itself, more and more and more empowering business to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Brad, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate all the work you're doing as well.
More to come, people. See you soon.